Hi, I'm Denyse Whelan, and I was diagnosed with squamous cell carcinoma in my upper gums and under one lip in May 2017. But on the day I found out that I had cancer in my gums, I was alone. I took a phone call from the lovely oral surgeon who'd done the biopsy the week before, and I think I sensed that the news was not going to be great. So whilst I had a teary reaction and was able to summon my husband back home from the work he was doing as a volunteer, I actually then, my head went into a different space. It went into the organiser that I am, the planner that I am, as I started to seek where I would be having a consultation. In fact, it was the very next day at Chris O'Brien Lifehouse with my surgeon, who was, and still is, Professor Jonathan Clark. Getting there, though, was the hard part. You see, my anxiety still had a great hold on me, and I was fearful of the drive. It was to Sydney for 2 hours. I was scared about my IBS that may have impacted me. But my husband, who was amazingly patient, still is, and my GP just said, Denyse, you know you've got to do it. And in fact, I did do it. I did it with lots of help. I used some medication, and I got to Chris O'Brien Lifehouse to hear the story of what was ahead, the surgery that would end up taking 11 hours. Once I knew what was ahead of me, scared as I was of the idea that I would lose the upper part of my mouth, I had to trust, and I did trust, in the team that was going to look after me. As someone who, like many, wants to be in control of everything, I realised this was something I couldn't actually control, and that the only thing I could control was me and my reactions. So I needed to embed some mindfulness practice, which I was already doing, but I needed to increase that, and I needed to use some distractions and so on as I waited the long 7 weeks before I finally had that surgery. As a teacher and a talker and an eater and a smiler, it was incredibly important for me to hope that I could have all the skills that I valued, such as talking, eating, drinking, and smiling. And in fact, when I recovered from the 11 hours of the pretty drastic reconstructive surgery, my first words were, "Oh, I can talk." That was incredibly powerful and empowering. I then recovered over the next 10 days at Chris O'Brien Lifehouse, and each medical person, each support person who came to see me went, "Wow, you're looking good." By their comments and by how I felt inside, I knew that I was on my way to wellness, even though it was one heck of a journey, and I knew it would take a very long time. Using those skills over the next 2.5 to actually 3 years now has become a practice. In fact, my mental health has never been better. I do, though, have to keep check of down days, and I have to remain patient as I wait in between surgeries. I've now had 4, but I am going extremely well. One thing that I stand by is having a routine. I was pretty routineless in my early years of retirement, but having a routine, something to look forward to, something creative to do every day, something social to do every day, which is when I go out for a cup of coffee and get myself dressed up to do so, has made the world of difference. I hope that sharing my story might help others know that having a cancer diagnosis, particularly one that's in the head and neck, may not necessarily be all doom and gloom. It may be a chance to grow.